It's 1996. Steve Saleen is driving down a California highway, probably in one of his own Mustangs, when he spots something that would change his company's trajectory forever. A Ford Explorer, the best-selling SUV in America, the official vehicle of suburban soccer practice and mall parking lots. And somewhere in that moment, Steve Saleen looked at this family hauler and thought, you know what this needs? A supercharger. Now, you have to understand the landscape here. Ford's SVT division was busy building the Cobra and the Lightning, serious performance machines for serious enthusiasts. But an Explorer? The suits in Dearborn wouldn't touch it. Too risky, too weird, too much liability when Karen from accounting wraps it around a telephone pole doing 90 in a school zone. But Steve Saleen looked at that gap in the market and saw opportunity. Or maybe he saw a challenge. Or maybe, and this is my personal theory, he just wanted to see if he could make a 2-ton family SUV do a burnout. And so, in 1998, the Saleen Explorer XP8 was born. They called it a PUV, Performance Utility Vehicle, because apparently, supercharged suburban assault weapon was too long for the brochure. This thing was peak 90s excess. Aggressive body kit, lowered suspension, magnesium wheels, a supercharged V8, and a price tag that would make a BMW dealer blush. All wrapped in a package designed to take the kids to soccer practice at 130 miles per hour. Because that was clearly a market that needed addressing. Under the hood sat the 5.0-liter V8, the legendary 302 Windsor, an iron block with iron heads. But this wasn't just any Windsor. The factory Explorer version came with the highly desirable GT40P cylinder heads, the same heads that Fox body Mustang owners pay good money to swap in. Better flowing than the old E7 heads with improved combustion chamber design. In factory trim, it made 210 horsepower and about 280 pound-feet of torque. Respectable, boring, completely unacceptable to Steve Saleen. So they bolted on a Powerdyne BD-11A centrifugal supercharger. And suddenly, this family hauler was making 286 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque. 286 from a Ford Explorer. Now here's where I need to correct a common misconception that floats around the internet. A lot of people assume Saleen used an Eaton Roots type supercharger, the same kind you'd find on a Thunderbird Super Coupe or a later Mustang Cobra. Nope. The XP8 used a Powerdyne BD-11A centrifugal unit, belt-driven, high revving, and it made a glorious whine that announced to everyone in the Target parking lot that this was not your average grocery getter. The centrifugal design meant boost built progressively with RPM, perfect for highway pulls, less ideal for stoplight drag races against Civic owners. But power means nothing if you can't put it down, and the stock Explorer, bless its heart, handled like a refrigerator on roller skates. So Saleen brought in the Racecraft suspension package, adjusted torsion bars up front, modified leaf springs out back, Racecraft N2 dampers, and upgraded sway bars. And they dropped the ride height by a full 2 inches. 2 inches on a body-on-frame SUV. The engineers who designed the Explorer for comfortable mall cruising probably wept when they saw what Saleen did to their creation. The braking situation was interesting. Base XP8s got upgraded rotors and pads, which was fine, but for an additional $2,400, you could option the Alcon 4-piston calipers. Big, beautiful, race-derived stoppers that looked absolutely magnificent behind those magnesium wheels. Here's the cruel irony. Those gorgeous Alcon brakes were later replaced on several vehicles after durability concerns surfaced. The very components meant to save you from your own supercharged stupidity might not have been up to the task. Peak 90s engineering, ladies and gentlemen. Let that sink in for a moment. 286 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 7.4 seconds. A $52,000 price tag in 1998 for a Ford Explorer with a supercharger and optional brakes that had durability issues. The Speedline wheels deserve their own paragraph because they were genuinely special. 18 inches of actual magnesium, not aluminum pretending to be magnesium, but the real thing. Lightweight, strong, expensive to replace. These were the same wheels you'd find on actual race cars, now fitted to a vehicle designed to haul kids and groceries. The weight savings helped offset some of the XP8's considerable mass, and they looked absolutely stunning. Good luck finding a replacement set today. You'll need a small fortune and a time machine. The exterior transformation was handled by Phil Frank, Saleen's design chief, and he didn't hold back. Aggressive front fascia with integrated fog lights, side skirts that emphasized the lowered stance, a rear bumper that meant business, subtle XP8 badging for those who knew what they were looking at. The overall effect was a factory explorer that had been to the gym, gotten angry, and decided to intimidate every minivan in the parking lot. It looked fast standing still, which was good because standing still was occasionally what it did best. Inside, many XP8s received Recaro sport seats wrapped in leather. Not the rock-hard racing buckets that destroy your spine on long trips, but proper grand touring seats with actual bolstering and support. The dashboard got a boost gauge, because you absolutely needed to watch that needle climb while merging onto the highway. White-faced gauges, Saleen-branded floor mats, a numbered plaque confirming your place in the limited production run. All the touches that said this cost way more than a regular Explorer, without being obnoxious about it. The Borla exhaust system was the XP8's voice, and what a voice it was. That 5.0 Windsor, force-fed by the Powerdyne supercharger, exhaling through mandrel-bent stainless steel pipes. It produced a sound that was equal parts muscle car rumble and supercharger whine. Not obnoxious, not boy racer loud, just authoritative. The kind of exhaust note that made other Explorer owners wonder what they were missing. The answer was about $30,000 and a complete disregard for practicality. How many XP8s did Saleen actually build? This is where it gets murky. Official numbers are hard to pin down because Saleen's record-keeping from this era was, let's call it, optimistic. Most estimates suggest around 125 units across the entire production run from 1998 to 2001. Some sources claim fewer than 100. Others suggest up to 170. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, rare enough to be special, common enough that you might actually find one for sale, if you look hard enough. $52,228, fully loaded, in 1998 money. Let me put that in perspective for you. A base Corvette that year cost around $38,000. A Mustang Cobra was under $30,000. You could buy a Porsche Boxster for roughly the same money as an XP8. Saleen was asking supercar prices for a supercharged family hauler. And somehow, about 125 people said, yes, this makes complete sense. Here is my money. Now, about that 7.4 second 0 to 60 time, Motor Trend tested it. It's real, it's documented. But here's the uncomfortable truth that XP8 owners don't like to discuss. The Jeep Grand Cherokee 5.9 Limited was faster, 6.8 seconds to 60, with no supercharger. Just a big, naturally aspirated V8 and a prayer. And the GMC Typhoon from earlier in the decade, 5.3 seconds. The XP8 wasn't the fastest performance SUV ever built. It wasn't even the fastest of its era. So what exactly were you paying for? Not outright speed. The Jeep had that covered. Not practicality. A regular Explorer did that better. Not exclusivity. Porsche would sell you actual German engineering for the same money. No, you were paying for the audacity. The sheer, magnificent audacity of Steve Saleen looking at a Ford Explorer and deciding it needed to be ridiculous. And then came the Firestone tire scandal. But here's where the timing gets truly cruel. The XP8 launched in 1998, when the Ford Explorer was America's best-selling SUV, the king of the suburbs, the default choice for anyone who needed space, capability, and didn't want a minivan. Saleen built their supercharged dream on top of what seemed like an unshakable foundation. But foundations can crack. February 2000, KHOU Television in Houston starts investigating Explorer rollovers linked to Firestone tire failures. By August 2000, Firestone recalls 6.5 million tires. The Explorer's reputation, carefully built over a decade, evaporates almost overnight. Suddenly, The vehicle Saleen chose as their performance SUV platform is front-page news for all the wrong reasons. Exploding tires, rollover deaths, congressional hearings. The Explorer went from suburban status symbol to suburban death trap in the public consciousness. Here's the particularly bitter irony. The XP8 didn't even use the problematic Firestone tires. Saleen spec'd different rubber for their performance application. But it didn't matter. The Explorer name was now toxic. Every XP8 owner had to explain to concerned friends and family that their specific supercharged SUV wasn't going to flip over and kill them. That's not a conversation that helps resale values. The XP8 became collateral damage in a scandal that had nothing to do with superchargers or Racecraft suspension. And then there was the XP6. Because dropping 50 grand on an SUV in 1998 was insane even by 90s standards, Saleen offered a more accessible version based on the 4.0-liter V6 Explorer. You got all the aggressive bodywork, the Racecraft suspension, and the magnesium wheels, but with a smaller engine. They even offered a supercharged version of the V6. Internet myths claim it was a shipping mistake, but the truth is simpler. Saleen was trying to find buyers who wanted the Flex without the V8 price tag. Still rare, still weird, still a Saleen. One thing that separated the XP8 from most tuner specials was its factory-authorized status. You could buy one through your local Ford dealer. It came with a warranty. Saleen wasn't some fly-by-night operation working out of a garage. They were an established manufacturer with proper certification. This legitimacy mattered. It meant your insurance company wouldn't laugh when you filed a claim. It meant service departments had actual documentation. It meant the XP8 was, officially speaking, a real vehicle, and not a backyard project that happened to have Recaro seats. Motor Trend got their hands on an XP8 for testing, and their verdict was decidedly mixed. The performance numbers were real, no argument there. The handling, for a vehicle of its size and weight, was genuinely impressive. But the value proposition? That's where they struggled. For $52,000, you could have so many other things. Better things, faster things. Things that wouldn't depreciate like a stone thrown off a cliff. But none of those things would be a supercharged Explorer. And apparently that mattered to someone. If you're thinking about buying an XP8 today, and based on the viewing demographics of this channel, some of you definitely are, let me paint you a picture of ownership. The Saleen-specific parts? Unobtainium. The Powerdyne supercharger needs a rebuild? Good luck finding someone who remembers how. The Speedline magnesium wheels crack? Start learning about wheel repair or prepare your wallet for suffering. The body kit pieces? Hope you're good with fiberglass because replacements don't exist. The supercharger situation deserves special attention. Powerdyne, the company that made the BD-11A centrifugal unit, no longer exists. They were acquired, restructured, and eventually dissolved. Finding rebuild kits requires scouring forums and prayer. Finding someone who actually knows how to rebuild one requires even more prayer. Many surviving XP8s have had their superchargers replaced with more modern units, Vortec being a popular swap, which technically makes them better cars, but also makes them less original. It's the classic collector car dilemma: authenticity versus actually being able to drive the thing. So you've got a rare Saleen with a dead supercharger. Do you spend thousands hunting down correct Powerdyne parts to maintain originality? Or do you swap in a modern Vortec that actually works and adds more power? There's no right answer, only expensive answers. Here's the surprising part. Despite the rarity, despite the Saleen name, despite the genuine 90s weirdness, XP8s are not expensive cars. You can find decent examples for $8,000 to $15,000. Really nice ones might push $22,000. Compare that to a late model Saleen Mustang, which commands serious money, and the XP8 looks like a bargain. Of course, that bargain comes with all the parts availability issues I just mentioned. The low buy-in is offset by the high ownership costs. There's no free lunch in the rare car world. The XP8 owner community is small, but dedicated. Forum threads that haven't seen activity in years suddenly spark to life when someone finds a cache of NO's Saleen parts. Group buys are organized for reproduction pieces. Knowledge is shared freely because everyone understands that keeping these things alive requires cooperation. It's the best and worst of car enthusiasm. Passionate people preserving something special, forced to become amateur archaeologists just to keep their vehicles running. The XP8 achieved a small measure of digital immortality through video games. Test Drive, Off-Road featured the vehicle, introducing it to a generation of players who would never see one in real life. It's a strange form of preservation. Thousands of people have virtually driven an XP8 through pixelated deserts, while fewer than 150 actual examples exist in the real world. The digital version will never need a supercharger rebuild. The real ones always will. Steve Saleen moved on from supercharged explorers to even more ambitious projects. The S7 supercar, the Raptor-based trucks, various Mustang programs that continue to this day. The XP8 represents a specific moment in Saleen's history, the late 90s, when anything seemed possible and excess was encouraged. It's a time capsule of ambition and audacity, frozen in automotive form. The company that built it still exists, but they'll never build anything quite like it again. Ford's SVT division eventually dipped their toes into performance truck waters with various F-150 projects, but they never touched the Explorer in that era. The XP8 remains the only factory-backed performance explorer of its era. Saleen filled a gap that Ford didn't even know existed, or more likely a gap that Ford knew existed but was too sensible to address. Sometimes the third-party tuners see opportunities that the manufacturers themselves are too cautious to pursue. The Saleen Explorer XP8 wasn't the fastest performance SUV ever built. It wasn't even the most remembered, overshadowed by the Typhoon before it and the AMG and M-powered SUVs that came after. But it might have been the most audacious. Saleen looked at America's favorite family hauler and decided to make it stupid fast, unreasonably expensive, and gloriously impractical. That takes a special kind of vision, or a special kind of madness, probably both. If Saleen had launched the XP8 2 years earlier, before the Firestone scandal, they might have sold more units and built a stronger legacy. If they had launched it 5 years later, the performance SUV market would have been more established and receptive. But they launched it in 1998, at exactly the wrong moment. Early enough to be weird, late enough to get caught in the Explorer's reputation collapse. Timing, as they say, is everything. And Saleen's timing was terrible. 286 horsepower, body-on-frame construction, a supercharger from a company that no longer exists, optional brakes that had durability issues, wheels you can't replace, a scandal that destroyed the platform's reputation. And yet, people still want them. People still restore them. People still argue about them on forums that haven't been updated since 2009. That's the mark of something special, even if that special comes with a lot of asterisks. Was the XP8 a good purchase in 1998? Absolutely not. Was it a wise investment? No. Would I recommend buying one today? Only if you have patience, mechanical skills, and a tolerance for frustration. But was it magnificent? Completely. It represented everything excessive and wonderful about 90s automotive culture. The belief that any vehicle could be improved with enough horsepower and attitude. The XP8 wasn't about transportation. It was about making a statement. That statement being, I have more money than sense, and I'm completely fine with that. The Saleen Explorer XP8 exists because Steve Saleen looked at the automotive landscape and asked, why not? Not, should we? Not, is there a market? Just, why not? And in that question lies the entire spirit of the vehicle. It's a supercharged answer to a question nobody asked, built on a platform that would become infamous, priced like a sports car, rare as a unicorn and impossible to maintain. It's ridiculous. It's wonderful. It's the most 90s thing that ever happened to the SUV market. And that's the story of the Saleen Explorer XP8, the $50,000 supercharged soccer mom mobile that arrived at exactly the wrong moment in automotive history. If you enjoyed this deep dive into 90s excess, smash that subscribe button. We've got more stories of corporate madness, engineering audacity, and cars that time forgot. This is Car Chronicles, where even soccer moms got superchargers. Next time on Car Chronicles, we're diving into another forgotten piece of automotive history that deserved better. Until then, keep your boost gauges reading positive and your Firestone tires far, far away.